Recording now.
It's recording. Yes.
Erev Tov, everyone. The majority of this week's Parsha, Pinchas, is involved in the count of the Jewish people. They were counted earlier in Chumash Bamidbar. So that was a census of the Jewish people of the Yotzei Mitzrayim. The 600 and some thousand men between the age of 20 and 60 that went from Egypt into the desert. In the interim, in the Chumash Bamidbar, many things occurred. Many of them, if not most of them, tragic. And now the Rabbanu Shalom counts them again, but in this count, the original people are not here anymore. These are their descendants, and these are the ones that are going to come to Eretz Yisrael. So in the count itself, there is always a melancholy, because the count teaches us that the entire generation that was the Dor Deah, perhaps the greatest generation of the Jewish people, those that saw the miracles of the Exodus from Egypt and accepted the Torah at Sinai, those who lived by the Mun and by the well, they're all gone. There's a medrash that 15,000 remained. But basically, that whole generation is gone. We know it in our own life experience. For instance, at every Pesach Seder, so we not only rejoice with those who are present, but there's always a pain, a feeling that those who are not there anymore, that were at previous Dorim with us. That's when we feel the loss. So here, where the Torah devotes such space and effort to give us a count of the people, inherent is the sadness, the sense of loss that the original generation is no longer here. And the Meforshim say we have like a half a posuk in this week's parsha, Vahi Achrei HaMagifah. It was after this plague that descended upon the Jewish people because of the story of the daughters of Midian, and then the Torah continues. So what is that doing there in the middle? And unfortunately, all point out that weighed upon them heavily, because now that we're all gone, and that always gives us a sense of loss, a sense of potential unfulfilled. So in the count, we have a regular count of, how many thousands, tens, thousands, etc. There are two side references that the Torah makes that really don't belong in the count. So the Torah tells us the story about Korach. And the Torah says, Ubnei Korach lo mesu. The sons of Korach did not die. So there are different ways of looking at that. Rav Avadia Yosef used to have a bitter quip that whenever there were disputes, so he would say, the results of Korach didn't die, right? The disputations amongst Klal Yisrael still exist. But that's a negative view. The Torah wants to tell us that there's always a future for the Jewish people. Part of this count of those who are there, of the new generation, is to make us look ahead instead of in the past. Now, the past is very important. And the past colors everything that we do. But our task is always the future. Our task is, what are we going to build? What are we going to create? How can we improve things? How can we bring things to a better state? And to mourn is a negative thing if it is overdone. Chazal say that one in one's own personal life should not mourn excessively, even though the pain is always there. But we look forward, we go ahead. So Bnei Korach, it's an amazing thing. They are one of the 10 authors of Tehillim. In fact, on Rosh Hashanah, according to our tradition, the Ashkenazic ritual, so when we want to prepare for the sounding of the shofar, so we begin, Lamatseach Bnei Korach Mizmor. We quote the chapter of Tehillim written by the Bnei Korach. Well, you would say that perhaps at that moment we want to forget about Korach. We don't want to mention him. They should have changed their name. Could have called themselves Rosenblum or somebody. But they remained Bnei Korach. And they were one of the Mishmarot of the Leviim, and they're the authors of Tehillim, and we remember them positively and for good, inspirationally. And according to the Medrash, they're the ones that continually shout Moshe Emes v'Toroso Emes. They're the witnesses to the truth of the Torah and to the greatness of Moshe Rabbeinu. So Korach, we know he made a mistake for various reasons, as the Meforshim explained. But Bnei Korach, he has a future. Even Korach has a future. Chazal say that without the great Rishoyim, Bnei Bonov, it says Shel Nebuchadnezzar, there's another Girsa, Shel Sancheriv, Lom the Torah b'Bnei Barak. Even for the worst of Rishoyim, there somehow could be a future. And that's one of the lessons of the count. Lessons of the count is we're not only counting the 603,000 that are not there, we're counting the fact that somehow they were replaced and there's a new generation that will accomplish what the old generation did not. And that's true in our lives as well. We all want that our succeeding generations should be greater than we are, should be more successful. It should somehow, because their success justifies our existence. And that's why Korach's name still remains. That's why they're included and made special mention in the count in this week's Parsha. There's a second piece in the Parsha, in the count, that also seemingly has no place. The Torah says, V'shem bas Asher Sorach. Asher, the son of Leah, I'm sorry. Yeah, so Asher had a daughter, Sorach. So, yeah, out of the 603,000 people they're counting, so they tell you that there was a woman named Sorach. And she was the daughter of Asher. And she's entitled to her own posuk in the Torah, which is the greatest guarantee of eternity that can exist. So what's the story with her? So in Chazal, she's a legendary figure. According to Chazal, she lived hundreds of years. There are midrashim that she saw David HaMelech. So you're talking about a woman who lived half a millennium. So what was her schus? Why is she so special? She's not mentioned in the Torah, you know, the Torah itself doesn't tell us any story about her. But the Medrash tells us the story. The Medrash says that when Yaakov Avinu was aware of the fact that Yosef somehow was not coming back, and he says, Yosef Einen, and he says, Ered, I go to the grave mourning forever for my son Yosef. And it says that all of his children and grandchildren came lenachamo, to comfort him, to console him. Vayemoin lis nochem, and he refused them. He would not accept any feelings of condolence. So Rashi points out the Gemara that Gzeira Lames Nishtachach Min Alev, if the person is truly no longer in this world, so then condolences can work. But Yosef was alive, so therefore Yaakov could not somehow be comforted. So the Medrash says that there was a little girl that was a granddaughter of Yaakov Avinu, Sorach bas Asher. And she used to sit next to her grandfather and comfort him. She would sing to him, the Medrash says. And he always found some sort of peace through this little girl. When Yosef revealed himself to the brothers, so they are faced with a tremendous dilemma. What are they going to tell their father? Told him for 22 years that he's dead. Torah of Yosef. And now they're going to come and say, that was all a joke. That we didn't mean it. Yosef, Moshe, the Choleretz Mitzrayim, and Yaakov won't survive it. The shark will kill him. So they had Naphtali had one idea. And he said, we won't say anything. Sarach will tell it. He listens to her. She's been singing to him for 20 years. So the Medrash says that she sang to him, "Oh Yosef Choy, oh Yosef Choy, oh Yosef Choy." And it entered into his subconscious. It entered into his mind. So that when they told him, so it says, Vayofog Libo, he had a heart attack. Lohemin Lohem, he didn't believe them. But he survived and he was able to come and see Yosef and be reunited. So she was the key. When everybody said that Yosef was dead, she said, "Oh, Yosef, boy." When no one could console the old grandfather, she stayed with him. So the Torah rewarded her. She lived for centuries. She saw Malchus Israel. And the Torah gave her a posuk. If you have a posuk in the Torah, that's guaranteed eternity. Shem bas asher sorach. So from these little asides that really have nothing to do with the count itself, the Torah always teaches us great moral lessons, great ideas that we should treasure, to realize that B'nai Korach lo meitzu, to realize Od Yosef Choy, to realize the power of consolation, the power of being with someone. The Torah wanted us to appreciate it. Therefore, the Torah wrote it. It becomes part of the count of the Jewish people because it guarantees that there always will be a count. There always will be a B'nai Korach. There will always be a Sorach Basosher. And that's the future of Klal Yisrael. Aber Chananya ben Akashi Omer Rotsa Kodesh Baruch Hu Zakos Es Yisrael Lefichach Chirbo Lahem Torah and Mitzvot Shenemar Adonai Chavetz Man Shekol Yavil Torah V'Yadir.